So a lot of people ask, what if they build a model with a modification kit, but maybe they didn't do a good job in the other area? So what do you say?
So we based our rules off of IPMS rules standards first, right? Mainly build standards. So quality of build is the biggest thing we focus on. Now, first and foremost of our judging criteria is based off of build skills. So we're talking about seam lines, we're talking about paint mistakes, we're talking about the decals that film not showing up properly. We're also talking about how everything goes together. So if you make modifications, those points are added after we do all the main judging. So our category for judging, we split it up into 4 main categories. We have build skills, we do finish, we also do technical, and we do presentation. So for build skills, this is your seam lines, this is how well you paint, this is how well you do your decals, the panel lines, whatnot. So when you're doing modifications, that goes into build skills, because when you're gluing something together, if you're gluing the modifications sideways or off, right, we'll see that when we're looking at that. So that goes to build quality. So when you're painting some of these, and you make a modification, you paint it, sometimes you'll see the mistakes when you do the painting as well. So the points are knocked off that way. So granted, when we go to technical skills, you'll get more points for technical, but then you might have gained those points because you lost points on your build skills. But if you built perfectly, there's no mistakes in your build, and then you add modifications to it, you're having that much more points versus someone that only built a standard kit without any modifications, but the standard kit is built perfectly. Now the goal is, when you're building a kit, you're building perfectly, right? So we look for the perfection in the kit, but we also understand that since this is Gundam, we also have various since we know that this is Gundam, we also know that there's a lot of creativity and imagination that goes into some of these kits. So we want to award that, the creativity. We want people to think outside of the box when they're building. So modifications and LED, add additions to LEDs, or additions with LEDs, additions with electronics, stuff that moves, that's gonna just add along the technical lines. But then if you're adding all that stuff but you build poorly, that's gonna balance that out. Hey, what do you think you're doing?
I'm building Gunpla.
Who taught you how to do that?
I learned it from you, okay?
So, next question. A lot of people ask, what's the difference if I put it on the base or not, or if the base need to be painted, or how about the posting of the art piece?
So that goes into the presentation of the display. So over here we have a kit that's just kind of held up on one of these Gundam display bases. Now nothing's done to this display base and it looks kind of crappy. So effectively, if we were to judge the base included, this would take points away from the kit. So when we judge something like this, we understand that this is just there as to hold up a piece. Normal IPMS judging is display bases are not taken into account when we're judging. Now, if the display piece is integral to the part, say for this, Vincent van Gogh display, now this display piece is part of the kit. So when we're judging, we do judge the display with this. Same thing with this kit here is, the tinfoil has a little bit of a reason for it to be part of the display. So that is actually part of the judging. And we will actually award points for that creativity where you create something like a base that makes more sense to as a display. Same thing with these Harls, if there's a hand under here displaying these this wonderful Harl cannon, then this goes into the judging of it. So we would actually award points for having this hand here when we're doing this.
Look at these seams. Look at this pose. Look at this gun. Look at this mono
I'm
eye.
pretty sure the hoses are upside down,
Look at this mono eye.
but it's the best thing I've ever
First
seen.
place.
Sieg Xeon, baby!
Yes, that's-
Tens across the
That's a
board.
winner. Look at this shitty pose. Look at these shitty seams. Look at this shitty gun. Look at this shitty mono eye. Look at this shitty shield. Look at this shitty pipes.
Those hoses are upside down, and
And you're still last place. Look at this shitty
thanks
head.
for the free
Look
drinks,
at this
buddy.
cockpit. Look at this shitty knee.
I needed new wheels for my car.
The Fetties did nothing wrong.
One of the big things about building Gunpla, not so much now with these later kits, but you know, with these older kits, like let's pick this guy for instance, right? So if we look at this kit, just gonna point out right here is there's a massive seam line that goes down here. Now, a lot of people that build Gunpla don't know what a seam line is, and basically you see all these parts where the kit comes together. So a lot of older kits have these simple arms that come together as, you know, two pieces because they have joints in the middle of them, right? So what happens is these two pieces come together, there's a line that marks in between. Now Bandai's gotten really smart about this, and they've designed it so that that line is actually a carved out line, so it's actually a panel line when you put those together. But some of these older kits will, like the Zaku here, will have the seam line down the middle. Now when basic model skills when you enter any IPMS contest is we're focused on making sure that these seams aren't there. So a lot of airplane models, tank models, they have seams. And one of the biggest mistakes that we see when people are building these kits is they're not taking care of these seams. They could have this kit wonderfully painted, wonderfully weathered, decaled and whatnot, but the seam is there and they didn't take care of that seam. And the seam is one of the most basic ideas to do. We're using glue, you're gluing it together, and you're sanding. So the people who are building these kits are already sanding the nubs and sanding down some of the lines and whatnot. Take the extra effort, glue that seam, wait a day, let it cure, and sand it down. Once you sand it down and you paint that up and you don't see that seam there, that is something that we really appreciate. That's one of the very basic skills. So when you're going into any contest such as SCGMC or IPMS, seam lines are a very big deal, as well as nubs. So these are very basic skills that we look to and we take points off of when we judge. Stop! Who taught you how to paint like that? Who taught you how to paint like that? Answer me, motherfucker!
Can I leave now?
No! Haven't you heard of Gunpla? So, our fourth topic that we talk about is called presentation. Now, you look at this, and look at this kit. There actually is some thought put into posing. Now, as these things are flying out because it's windy, posing is a big deal because these kits are actually very posable, unless you built a resin kit which is not posed. But your typical resin kits are actually designed and posed so that it's more of a dynamic pose. So since these are movable, you want to be able to make it look not shitty. Put the legs out a little bit, put some bend in the knees, and it's as simple as this will net you a couple of more points versus something that looks like this, barely even posed. So if you have something that's standing very static, it's a robot. It needs to have some kind of action in it because it has joints, it is movable. We expect a level of posability with that. So along that line, there's a presentation effect. So this goes into that whole presentation points. We'll give more points if two kits are built exactly identically the same. basic build skills are there, technical skills are there, finishing skills are there, but it comes down to presentation. One kit's going to be posed better than the other kit. That's going to catch our eye, and we're going to appreciate that the modeler went into thinking about this and presented the model the best they could do, so we award points for that. This is Clem drinking.
Yeah, it is.
So a lot of times we get the question, where does my kit fit in? Am I a beginner? Am I advanced? Am I expert? So we have judges on hand at the show that when you're looking at the kit, they'll see your kit and it'll determine whether you belong in the beginner category, advanced category, or expert category. So majority of the people are going to be intermediate, advanced level. You know, they've been building models for a while. Maybe this is even their first competition. So some people that will come to our show, this is their very first competition, but they've been building for 15 years. So they actually have the skills to be part of the advanced or expert levels. So what really determines beginner level versus expert level is just your build quality. We're going to look at the kits and see that how you build, and we will categorize you so you're competing amongst your peers. You know, we don't want beginners competing with advanced players because it's just not fair. You're not playing on a level playing field. Now, people that have won in beginners, they're encouraged because they're at the very top of that beginner category. They should move up to advanced level. Now, year after year, we've had several people that build at beginner and they've moved up to advanced, they've moved up to expert. So determining what level you build at, you definitely know how well you build. I mean, if you've never painted before, you're just snapping kits together, and maybe you do some panel lines, maybe you do some stickers, maybe you do some weathering, you're a beginner level. Now maybe you've started painting, you're hand painting, but this is your very first kit you've painted, maybe you've spray painted it for the first time, you're still probably in the beginner level. And then it's when you start taking care of the seam lines, it's when you start taking care of the real weathering, the real modifications, the battle damages, or building a diorama and whatnot. That puts you in the advanced and intermediate categories. Hey, what you got doing there? That doesn't look like Gunpla.
Gunpla's freedom.
Is that